Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
There we go. Welcome in. What is it, Megan? Monday afternoon here. Guerilla Sports off ice. I'm Jesse Montano. She's Meghan Angley. We're hundreds, if not thousands of miles apart right now, Megan, but that can't stop the show from going on. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? How was morning skate?
It was good. Yeah, out here in Philly, where I was at the Wells Fargo Center this morning. The Flyers take their morning skate pretty far away. So we didn't get to see the Flyer skate. We didn't get to talk to EJ, but it was a good skate for the Avs, full skate. Justus Annunen going in net. Mandalisi was there. And then right as skate was wrapping up, Alexander Georgiev stepped onto the ice. So that was nice to see. We'll talk about that as this show goes on. But it was good. It was nice. You know, we had skipped the last couple road trips, just one off. So it was nice to be back on the road with the team. But we're going to talk about tonight. We are going to get into a little bit of the injury updates. And then I don't know if this will be a terribly long show, but then Megan and I are going to just take a teeny little stroll down memory lane, talk a little bit about ERIK Johnson, our experiences with him, maybe a favorite moment if you've got one off the top of your head there, Megan. But let's just get into it for tonight. Not a ton of lineup changes coming for the Avs, Megan. Pretty much going to be copy-paste from what we saw a couple nights ago, except Calvin DeHaan looks like he's coming out. Oliver Kylington going back in. I guess let's just start off the top. What are your thoughts on this swap?
I guess for as long as he's still here, it doesn't do him any good to be on a shelf, particularly if they are trying to find some kind of value to extract in terms of garnering a return or generating interest in him. I think that he needs to be playing. And where he's played so far to start this year, his stock has declined a little bit in the performances that we've seen. So I think it's important not to keep him on a shelf for too long, get him into some game action for that purpose, but also for him as a player. He's missed a lot of hockey before this. It's obviously just not good for any player to be sitting out for too long. And it's still worth the Avs seeing what they have in him. I think, too, in looking at this Philadelphia matchup and things that maybe didn't go so well in the Caps game, his puck-moving ability that has been teased that we haven't really gotten to see just yet would be very useful to help the Avs to move the puck around the offensive zone and hopefully to drive in inner ice. So I think there's maybe some of that vision, too, of what Kylington could add that they needed last game and will certainly need tonight.
You know what? Maybe it is unfair to put this on Kylington, given that he's been out of the lineup for a while now. You know, we just saw it with guys like Drouin and Miles Wood. That getting back in the lineup, it takes a few shifts, maybe even a couple periods. I talked to Jonathan Drouin at practice yesterday, or 2 days ago. 2 days ago. And, he said that, when you're coming back after being out of the lineup, you want to get some touches. You want to just make a couple passes at game speed. You want to, finish a check. And, he even said, like, you want to take a check as well. You want to receive some contact just to kind of get your body back in the feel of things. It's tough because Kylington's really going to be dealing with a very similar situation in terms of trying to get back up to game speed, not because of injury necessarily, but just he's been out of the lineup for that long. But like Megan, it does, unfortunately for Oliver Kylington, feel a little bit to me like, you have to come into the lineup and be effective tonight. You cannot have another performance like one of the three that we have seen from Kylington in the early parts of this season. And again, maybe that's unfair because he's going to be jumping back into the lineup. But again, that's the nature of the spot that he's in. He's got to be effective tonight. And he's got to do it quickly.
He does, because I think that's the sole reason I could see him getting into a game ahead of a player like Ludwig, or even if it's just to give a guy like Calvin DeHaan the night off, two stay-at-home defenseman types against what is going to be a stingy defensive team in Philadelphia. you could see the defensive matchup being compatible in that way. But maybe that's just it. You're looking at a Philadelphia team that is stingy defensively. You want to inject any more offense that you can. Shillington, of those options, is the guy who, at least in theory, should be able to provide some more of that.
Now, I will say this for Shillington. In the last, I'll say week, there have been 2 separate times. Just saw him dart across the back. I love that. Hey, Hannah's cat, usually when I do these at home, will usually just come right across the keyboard and right across the lens. So at least that hasn't happened yet.
That's true.
There's been 2 times in practices in the last week where I feel like I've seen flashes of that Oliver Shillington skating ability and puck ability that we've heard Jared Bednar talk about multiple times. At least flash in a practice setting, which I don't even think we were seeing at the beginning of the season, during camp, things like that. So I'm actually anxious to see him get in tonight. And I think you're right, Megan. Like, you have to get him in. I agree with what right here in the comments there it was. Sorry, it took me a second to find it. I would have assumed if anyone got the go-ahead to play against the Flyers to swap out DeHaan, it would have been Ludwig. I think Ludwig has been really solid this season. I think that's been a really quiet, quality waiver pickup for the Avs. That's who I probably would have preferred to see draw in, but I also understand, to your point, why they'd want to get a look at Shillington. It does him no good just to sit there. Whether you're trying to figure out if he's a viable option for you or trying to boost some trade stock, you got to get him in a game. So I get it. Do you think that that's the primary objective here? We just got to get Oliver in a game for whether it be for us keeping him or for us moving on from him?
I do, because I think it's like a lesser version of the goaltending issue in carrying 3 goaltenders. They have one too many defensemen right now. Yeah. They really only need 1 extra. Right now they have 2, and I've also liked what I've seen in Ludwig. So I think they just need to get a little bit more information while they can around what is Shillington, what is his fit here, if any, and where can we extract value, if any. And I think that's what it boils down to.
Shillington has played in 4 games for the Avs this season. October 14th against the Islanders. Yikes. October 16th against the Bruins. October 30th against the Lightning. All of those at home. And then he played in the 1 game in Nashville on November 2nd. That was his last game. So it's been just over 2 weeks since we've seen Oliver Shillington in the lineup. He also got sick at some point during this season, so we didn't even see him on the ice for like a week. Like I said, maybe it's unfair to have the high expectations for him, but he's got to make some noise tonight. I'll be curious to see how Oliver Shillington shakes things up. Megan, you and I commented on the fact that the Washington Capitals bench was very animated on every blocked shot, very animated, a lot of stick banging, a lot of shouting. And we were like, man, do these guys not block a lot of shots? Not only do they block a lot of shots, they're second in the league in blocked shots, behind only the Philadelphia Flyers. So I love that call out you made just a minute ago about the Avs needing to get to the interior of the ice offensively in this game. You got to make things more difficult. You got to get you got to get in front of the eyes of the goaltender. You got to find rebounds in front because this is a stingy defensive team. They are going to block a lot of shots.
Yeah, and I think that this is why we also see a little bit of a shakeup inside the top 6. Creation was a little bit of a challenge last game. It wasn't so much in terms of the volume of shots, but the quality of chances. They weren't getting the best of looks. They were held to the perimeter, and there was an execution issue in getting passes off successfully. And I think that trying some things that are familiar and true in a Drouin and a McKinnon, that's going to work very well. In the same way that you can always return to McKinnon and Rantanen too, but I like the idea of going back to something that works extremely well in that top line with the Drouin-McKinnon connection, and giving Casey Middlestat a different look with Rantanen as a line mate. I still love, where Lehkonen and Nichushkin fit in that top 6 picture, but I think that's going to be another key in driving inner ice is just getting passes through. I think, because of such good lane management from the Caps and likely Philly as well tonight, they're going to need that to be a part of their game that is firing.
Val Nichushkin. I'd like to see this be a big Val game. I'm not saying he needs to go out and pump 3 goals into the net or anything like that, but apropos of what you're talking about, that's another area where he can be a difference maker for this Avs team, just being difficult to stop getting to the middle of the ice. Megan, I want your take on this from Alyssa. DeHaan seems so solid. I am always surprised when they take him out of the lineup. Is it more the value for trades to give Shillington a chance, or more for DeHaan maintenance? My take on it, I think DeHaan has been good. I don't think he's been perfect. I think John Ludwig, again, has been good, has not been perfect. I've understood why Jared Bednar has kind of swapped back and forth on those two. Calvin DeHaan, also a guy, battled some injuries in his career, so I'm sure there's a little bit of load management here. What's your take on this, Megan?
I think I feel similarly, and I also feel spoiled because this is one of my favorite iterations of the third pairing yet. And so Calvin DeHaan is a reason for that. I do like his fit on the third pair more than I've liked others of a similar mold there before. I do also agree, though, that I think there are some limitations in his game that warrant then a little bit of a switch up. I think Ludwig's surprised by having a little more puck skill upside than people expected him to have. And so there were reasons for sometimes Ludwig then being the guy who would draw in, because he showed some things in the offensive zone people weren't quite expecting. Things that you don't necessarily look to Calvin DeHaan, who is so good in his own end, but also I think plays a really simple game in that sense that sometimes even the breakout isn't as dangerous with a DeHaan versus now Ludwig, who I think has just a little bit of an edge in that way. And then obviously Shillington, we haven't seen what he's supposed to be good at, but because DeHaan hasn't taken any maintenance days to our eyes, I won't classify it as, keeping him out just to kind of keep the number of games down a little bit. I don't doubt that is a part of it, but I think the other part of it is needing to get Shillington in games, get him some showings, because as I just described, I kind of have an idea of what these other two players are in Ludwig and DeHaan. Though to Ludwig's credit, I want to see him in more games too. It's not good for him to be on the shelf too long either, but I think that's what it boils down to, is kind of a combination of all three of these things.
Oh, you just said something there. I don't know if I want to take us down the whole tangent on it. Even Jared Bednar was surprised after that first game that John Ludwig got in with his surprising upside in the offensive zone. I won't derail us any more than that. Megan, we did see Alexander Georgiev get on the ice this morning. He will not back up tonight. It will be Kevin Mandolisi backing up Justus Annunen. Annunen looking for a bounce back game. I'm not even going to ask you what you're looking for in Annunen tonight. It's just got to be better than what we saw against the Capitals, period. End of discussion. It's got to be better. Got to find a way to come up with a couple more saves. Alexander Georgiev, look, he's on the trip. He skated this morning, looked good. Gosh, this is a bummer for him. It seemed like right as he was starting to get things back on the rails to have to sit out a couple games with injury. Disappointing for him, disappointing for the organization right now.
It is. I think just touching on Justus Annunen quickly,
this
is maybe one of the first times he's been spoken about in a Bednar presser kind of critically, like pretty critically. And so I want to see how Justus Annunen mentally responds to that. I think that he's very mature and has a strong head on his shoulders to be able to take that criticism constructively and turn it into a good game. And that's what you need, because that has been sometimes the question mark with Georgiev. That's what I really want to see from Annunen, that I think will earn him a lot of trust in being able to bounce back from a bad performance with a good one. I think that he shouldn't be sheltered from the criticism any more or less than Georgiev has been. So I think that's an important learning lesson that I'm keeping an eye on. And then for poor Georgiev, I think this is why, Jack Campbell goes on waivers. I get a lot of buzz in my mentions about this. Georgiev is on this trip. It doesn't seem very serious. You don't want to have what we just escaped from in Kakinen or Prosvetov last season and just bringing in another third goaltender that you don't fully intend to utilize. Because I don't think the answer is not to have Annunen turn things around and back up at some point. I do think the goaltending depth is a little bit of a concern. Mandolisi and Miner have been playing great in the American League. it's a third string goalie option that I think you never feel comfortable with a third string goalie,
Right.
because that means two things have gone terribly wrong. I just don't know that pulling the trigger on Jack Campbell on waivers would have been any sort of answer for the Avs,
No.
in part because of how not serious this injury ailment to Georgiev seems. I hate that it disturbs his rhythm a little bit, but it also feels like Onninen's time to get back into a rhythm, because you saw that performance. You're like, oh, maybe he needed to be getting in a couple more starts here. That was not a very good performance. So I think regardless of Georgiev's injury, I probably would have wanted to see them go back to Onninen tonight.
I think your call out there of like he can't be sheltered from the criticism, because Jared Bednar has been critical of Alexander Georgiev this season, no doubt about it. Like, he has called him out when he hasn't been playing well at the beginning of the season. And, he just told us a couple days, or I guess it was a couple days ago, but last week when you asked about how he balances the three goaltender rotation before they waived Kakinen, and he said, look, we're in this situation for a reason. Goaltenders weren't playing well enough. And that was, again, not a shot at Georgiev, but that was a call out. And I just thought it was appropriate, to your point, that, hey, Annunen didn't play well. We're calling that out. That's fair. You want to be a starter in this league. That's the level of criticism. And, that's the standard. So again, it's to your point. Yes, they're kind of there by necessity with injury, but I think it's good that they're going right back to Annunen and see how he can bounce back. If he truly, for all the folks out there that, we had a question after the last game that, hey, why does Georgiev get 7 goals and still the starter? Well, Annunen's getting a chance to bounce back here. You want to be a starter, you got to find a way to turn the page on a bad game. RE the Jack Campbell stuff. I was trying to find the nicest way. I had someone ask me yesterday on Twitter, is this a good fit? And I just responded, nope, not the right fit at all. Because I didn't want to be mean. Jack Campbell, I'm sure, gets enough of that online. But no. Jack Campbell would not have been the solution. That wouldn't have been any type of fix. You would have found yourself right in the exact same situation of hoping that your goalie can come up with a save instead of feeling confident in that. Anything else on goaltenders for you tonight? What you're looking for tonight? No. All right. Let's hear from Miles Wood here. I did talk to Miles this morning. He was the one player that came back into the lineup against Washington who did not get a shout out from Jared Bednar after the game and saying that they played well. So caught up with Miles Wood this morning. I guess just wanted to start with how you felt. You had some time off there going back in that last game. How were you kind of feeling?
Yeah, I felt great. It was, I thought us as a line had a great game. It was unfortunate that we didn't get the win there, but Parks and Kobe helped me out a lot there, so it was good. It's good for us.
How long does it take? I was talking to Joe after that game. He said that when you have some time off, you just kind of want to keep it simple, get some touches, get some hits. Is that kind of same process for you?
To start the game, yeah, but then he had a lot more time off than me. But for sure to start the game, you just want to get your legs back, but. For me, it was just another game. I felt great out there, so it was good.
And then, getting out on the road here, now that you guys do have everyone back, is this a good time for you guys to get on the road and just kind of be together now that you guys are closer to healthy?
Yeah, for sure. I think we're on the road here up until probably Christmas, I think. So, it's a great opportunity, us as a team, to grow together on the road and see each other just a bit more. So it's good.
That's all I got for you. I think Miles Wood can be so valuable to this team in the bottom part of the lineup. He struggled to start the season. It was obvious he was playing through some injury. Do you have any thoughts on Miles Wood from a couple nights ago? And I guess it's hard to ask, what are we looking for out of him? Because he's supposed to be a role player. But again, when he's the upgrade on players that you had in the lineup, you want to see a little bit more, I feel like.
Well, especially through this point, it's been tough. It's been interrupted by injury, which you also then factor into why he hasn't quite looked like the same player that we saw last season to start this year. In knowing that he's been playing through a little bit of an injury, that really does explain it. Even though he wasn't among the players Jared Bednar personally called out after last game, I liked his return to play. I liked his line. They finished as one of the best possession lines, and you look at how the Kovalenko goal gets scored, and it is because of a heavy forecheck from every player on that line. Had to sacrifice a little bit of something, in particular Parker Kelly at the blue line, but it starts with Kovalenko battling for the puck. Miles Wood is there along the wall to help claim it, and that's how they come out then at the end of the night, not only as the best possession line because of that heavy forecheck, but also as a line that allowed 0 scoring chances against at 5v5. It's an incredibly impressive defensive metric. And when you look at Miles Wood's individual game, he's done decent things on the penalty kill, even though he's been playing through a little bit of something. You know, of the penalty kill forwards, Logan O'Connor still stands out as one of the best. Parker Kelly has been great in stepping into that role. Lehkonen, now that he's back, but Miles Wood was right there in that conversation. And then when you look proportionate to the minutes he's played on the PK, another player who has allowed some of the fewest chances against with more ice time there on the PK. So defensively, he's taken huge strides because he didn't PK in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they didn't really top him for that, but he's taken big strides then in that way. I think that's what you kind of similar to how we talked about Logan O'Connor being a bit snake bitten at the moment. He's still contributing in important ways that are valuable to this team. I think what's missing has been the offense, which there was more of in his career prior to this point, and more that we saw teased last season that we need to see more of right now. And it's been missing for, I think, a few players like him. You know, I think Logan O'Connor is different in that his role has been elevated. And so there's maybe more opportunity for that offensive flash. Whereas Miles Wood to start this year has taken a little bit of a demotion just in terms of the talent that he's playing alongside. It's not Ross Golden. It's not Logan O'Connor. He's had very different talent around him. So I think there's also a component of him needing to adjust to a slightly different role that's going to be a little bit lower in the lineup. It's going to demand those same blue collar things that I think he's doing well right now. He needs to figure out how to translate some of the offense that he's had in his career to this point to where he's at now. You know, Parker Kelly being able to get on the score sheet recently here has been huge. I think that Miles Wood needs to look to follow a similar path because you should feel that his skill upside is higher. And I think that's where people are left wanting more with Wood. But I wasn't tremendously disappointed with his return to play.
I think I do think there is a level of it that, because like, look, Megan, like for me, I think a lot of it stems from how Miles Wood started this season. Clearly playing through some injury, was not looking up to the level that you wanted from him, not up to the level that you were wanting in a 6-year commitment to a player, things like that. I was actually you and I were having the conversation, and I was telling you the other day, like, look, if Miles Wood doesn't come back from injury looking any different, well, you got to clear some cap space. If you're still planning on Gabe Landeskog coming back, is that an easy way to do it? I'm with you though. They need Miles Wood. Like, he's part of that depth that we talk so much about the 2022 Cup team and how they could just roll 4 lines and just, not only do they have the high-end skill, but they could just grind you to death. They need that from Miles Wood. I'm with you. I liked his line defensively a couple nights ago. Can he, dial his game in to be, I don't need to repeat everything you said. Can he dial his game in to be that kind of, not specialist, but that type of player that they need in the bottom part of the lineup that is going to make them not just, offensively top heavy and can score with anybody and have the elite talent, but that's going to give them that dynamic in the lower part of the lineup that just grinds you down as seasons and playoff series and stuff go on. He seemed today like he was in a better mood than what we saw earlier in the season. And I do wonder how much of that was stemming from just kind of constantly being a little bit in pain. We saw he was wrapped up like a mummy before he went out with the injury. So, it does seem like he's maybe just a hair more comfortable.
I think too, there was maybe some disappointment to start this year. He wasn't being used in a third line role. And so he's watching as his friends are being promoted around him. It's not just Ross Colton, but Logan O'Connor too is benefiting from that. And he's sort of the guy that's left hanging back. And I think for good reason. I think he had more to prove to earn a higher role in the lineup, and he still does. You look at the 2.5 cap hit, and that's a bit rich for a fourth line player. So he does still need to emerge as more than that for right now. I think it's understandable, though, why it's been a little bit slow to come along to start this year. But he does need to elevate his game to make sense in this puzzle.
Right. And Megan, you're on one today. You're just, it's the puzzle, and it's, can you contribute in the right way, or are you someone that needs to be, and this isn't just Miles Wood. There's just several players that are kind of around the fringes. We're seeing Oliver Shillington get into the lineup tonight, and I think he kind of falls in this too. Can you fit into part of the puzzle, or are you a piece that we need to remove to make these other puzzle pieces fit? And I think there are a couple guys, not saying that Miles Wood is necessarily in that space, but with the way that he was playing at the beginning of the season, we at least had the conversation, among in the media room, of there's some money you could clear out if he keeps looking like this. We'll keep an eye on him for tonight. Megan, what else do you have for tonight? Avs, Flyers, anything else you're keeping on? Then we're going to kind of shift gears here to EJ before we get out for the day. The Avs need a bounce back. It's got to be better than what it was a couple nights. They need to bounce back just like what happened behind your shoulder there. They need to just spring out of the gates.
He's normally really shy. I don't know what's going on.
It's all good. It's
I
more
don't
entertaining than
much
us.
More for the matchup. I think that the EJ conversation is perfect to transition to.
Yeah, perfect. Avs got to get out to a better start tonight. Let's shift gears to a player. Sorry, your eyes and head nodding there. They have to get a good start. Like they have to get a good start, not just tonight, but like, can you get one this season?
And can you not allow any in the first period?
Right. Like the Avs need they just need a game where they come out, start strong, and can just kind of, because it feels like the couple games this season where they have gotten out of the gates hot, they just kind of immediately give it up going back the other direction and can't build on it at all. That's what I want to see tonight. I just want to see a strong start on both ends of the ice, because it just feels like it's been, haven't gotten it yet this season. Let's talk about EJ here, and I'll actually transition us. I did talk to Casey Middlestat this morning, talked to him a little bit about non-Erik Johnson stuff. Then he actually did play with Erik Johnson last year in Buffalo, and actually had a pretty fun perspective on EJ as well.
I guess just for starters, talk to Jared and just Miles. Is it a good time for you guys to get out on the road with everyone kind of getting back healthy?
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously on the road you're away from family and friends, so good team bonding time, and obviously with guys coming back, I think being on the road is a good way to find your routines and get back to playing.
And then, assuming health and all that stuff, is it nice for you to maybe be able to settle in with a couple line mates, instead of such a rotating cast?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there's always going to be moving parts and moving pieces. I think I understand that as a hockey player, but I think any consistency overall is usually a good thing. So, and it helps, you get 2-3 really good players back. I think not even for myself, but for the team and the depth of the team, I think it makes a big difference.
And obviously, you didn't play with him for as long as some of the guys in here, but you did play with Erik Johnson. Just how fun is it to get to be a part of that celebration tonight? Yeah,
it'll be awesome. I think for me, I grew up watching EJ, especially when he was at the Gophers and whatnot, and Minnesota kid going first overall was a pretty big deal. So. It's crazy how it goes full circle, and got to know him really well in Buff, and I'm excited to be a part of it and get to see tonight.
I know a lot of guys say they don't have many stories they can tell about EJ, but just what was it like being a teammate of his?
It was hilarious. I think he walked in day one, and obviously I didn't know him, and here he was. It was pretty comical every day. I think he's always playing pranks and telling jokes, so. great guy to have on your team, and obviously quite the competitor as well.
That's all I got for you.
Thanks.
I've heard a lot of questions being asked in the room in the last couple of weeks, different people in the media space trying to put together EJ stories, and I think I've heard the phrase, well, none that I can tell you, more in the last 2 weeks than like I ever have. But it was funny because there was some Finnish media in the locker room this morning, so they took a lot of Mikko's time. And just by the time we got in, there weren't a lot of guys, who had played with Erik Johnson for an extended period of time. So Casey was sitting there. Casey gets undressed a little bit slower than the other guys. And I said, "Oh, he played with him last year in Buffalo. Maybe this will be a fun perspective on a guy who." Didn't play with him as long, but just kind of a snapshot. And it ended up, I actually thought he gave a couple great answers. I forgot, Erik Johnson from Bloomington, Minnesota. Casey saying, "Oh, I watched him. He was with the Gophers, then saw him go first overall, and I'd always kind of followed him." And I said, "Man, this actually ended up being kind of a cool, different, response than what I was expecting." But Erik Johnson, Megan, it is funny because I do think he had an interesting tenure with the Avs, because he was the centerpiece on a trade that was like one of the first real big blockbuster deals, of the modern era Avs. It was after Pierre Lacroix, and they moved on from some players that they really liked to bring in Erik Johnson. And that ended up being the season where the wheels kind of came off for the team. And, they spent several years at the bottom of the league, and Erik Johnson dealt with some injuries. And so there was a while there where it was like, man, is the Erik Johnson era, how is it truly going to end? Obviously we all know how it wrapped up, and the Stanley Cup and all of that. But I really do think that Erik Johnson, I don't know, Gabe Landeskog has always gotten a lot of attention and praise for the fact that he went in and made a request to the organization to not move him when they were struggling so much, and to be part of the solution. And I don't know if enough people talk about the fact that Erik Johnson was the other person having that conversation with Gabe Landeskog and management. Broad strokes, Erik Johnson's time with the Avalanche from your perspective, Megan.
Well, he should feel so much pride in the career he carved out and how it unfolded in Colorado specifically. He was always a highly touted player, and it felt like coming to Colorado was a chance to really value him. I recall, Jan Heda, Erik Johnson top pairing that I think kind of was a turning point too, and the Avs evaluating how their back end is constructed and how it can contribute to the bottom line. And I think that, a former iteration of Erik Johnson was a part of that because of the highly skilled player that he was early in his career. And it's not that he's no longer a skilled player, but I think it's important to recognize how, as a young player, he has been hampered by injury so much throughout his career. And I think to then carve out 1,000 games is such a huge accomplishment and a testament to the warrior that he is, because he had to adjust to so many new normals with his body. As he got older as a player, season by season, more and more things seemed to bother him. And he found ways to still be a contributor, even though his role did change as the seasons went on during his time in Colorado. The leadership role never wavered. And I think that's what I think of when I think of Erik Johnson. He was such a glue piece that I think they had to make an adjustment in no longer having him in that room. He was such an important person to bring into the fold new players. And I think some of these pranks that we're hearing about, I love Casey Middlestat, the word he uses off the top is hilarious. I think that does describe what his influence was in the locker room, but I think that's the kind of thing that drops people's defenses when they're joining a team newly and helps them to feel comfortable. And he has already shown that in Philly. And I'm a little sad to hear of these, Michkov stories and just how much they adore him, because it makes me miss what he was to the Avs when he was here. But I think it's a testament to who he is as a player, that he can go into a room completely newly and kind of take over as this lovable and goofy guy that can bring any player into the fold, no matter the language that they speak primarily.
Well, and that's so funny you mentioned that, because I also just found it so damn funny that I said, what was it like to play with Erik Johnson? It was hilarious. Like, it's
Right.
that was not, I thought I was gonna be like a pretty canned, like, oh, it's great. It was awesome playing with him. It was hilarious. It was just such a funny way to start that. And then this comment right here, his lighthearted leadership just seems few and far between and incredibly hard to replace. He's such an interesting guy because, as Casey finished on that interview saying, an unbelievable competitor like Erik Johnson, we've seen him. I mean, he just got in a fight a couple nights ago. Like when that switch flips for him, like he's in it just as anyone else, but like such an incredibly nice guy with us, always chatting with all kinds of people that are in the locker room, things like that, making jokes. Then, yeah, you hear all the stories from all these different players. And it is just so funny because he does seem to be this rare mix of, super serious, but also like everything's hilarious. I'm really happy that he did get the Stanley Cup with the Avs, because like I said, it really did just feel like there was so much of his time with the Avalanche in what should have been his prime that was derailed by things out of his control, or just the team wasn't any good. I think about the 1 year where he was on pace to have like his best offensive year ever, and he has the injury that ends his season. There was just so many moments like that it was so nice to see it all culminate in a Stanley Cup championship with the Avalanche. That I just think that added to, and obviously, but to the specialness of his connection with the team and being able to leave on a good note, and not just this like, oh yeah, remember Erik Johnson? That was awesome when he was an Av for so long, but he's not anymore. So, I'm happy that he got the reward for everything that he put in, despite there being so many different obstacles in his way that were just outside of his control.
I think so too. And I'm glad that even though it'll be 1,001, he'll celebrate the 1,000th game mark with the Avs. I think it says a lot about what the organization meant to him, in addition to everything we've seen with the friendships, the lifelong friendships that he's forged with teammates to this day that are still very close to him and bring a tear to his eye. Like, he's worn his heart on his sleeve in front of us as media, and we usually get a much more guarded version of players. But I liked that about Erik Johnson a lot. He also took the time to learn everybody's name, to include you. One of my memories is him congratulating you on your wedding, and you had no idea how he would know that you went and got married, but he did, because he was locked in and he cared about the people around him beyond just his teammates.
Yeah, and I've got an Erik Johnson story that I'll share one day, but I'll keep it to myself for now. But the story, and what you just said. In spades, Meghan, one of the kinder individuals that I've come across, and like you said, that extended well beyond the players or even just the people standing in that locker room. So, like I said, I've got my own personal Erik Johnson story that like I said, don't necessarily know if I need to air out right now, but I will one of these days. I have a soft spot for Erik Johnson. Absolutely, he's a great individual. And like you said, I'm honestly, I'm just happy to see him still in the league. Like, this is not meant to be any kind of shot at Erik Johnson, but when he left the Avs, I did wonder. I said, well, what was going to be the market out there for him? Part of what made him the one overall and such an elite prospect was the fact that he was this monster of a human who could get up and down the ice and could score goals and contribute offensively and things like that. And, as you get older, we see it in every sport. This is not exclusive to hockey. As you get older, some of that mobility and some of that speed is one of the first things to go for some. And I sat there, I said, well, man, are other teams going to value the leadership and having a guy around like that? And not only did Buffalo value it, they valued it at a very nice price tag. So I was happy to see him get paid, still, kicking around, getting to 1,000 games this year. I'm sure that's something that deep down for Erik Johnson, I'm sure there were a lot of times in his career if he questioned if he would get to 1,000 games. So it's awesome to see.
When he shattered his foot near the end of his Avs tenure, there was this sense of, can he come back from that? And not only did he came back quicker than he probably should have. And I think maybe that was some of the lingering concern too, is will there be any repercussions for that? But I think that's what adds to him continuing to be in the league, being pretty special.
He's we throw that term around a lot, like, oh, special player. And everyone always thinks that it, oh, you got to be Connor McDavid to be a special player. Erik Johnson's a special player too, in his own way. In addition to being a very good hockey player, an elite hockey player at one point in his career, special player, special individual. I'm very happy that. And how about this? Hey, I was talking to just some of the Avs folks this morning. Like, so here we are. After I don't know off the top of my head what his total game count was with the Avs, but 1,000 games later, and even for it to be 1,001, that's pretty crazy. He was not with the Flyers guaranteed when this schedule was made. So for it to line up even as close as it did is pretty remarkable.
It's so remarkable. I want to read the Ben Myers story. If people who are listening to this haven't heard it yet, I thought it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
Okay. You have it?
Yes, I have it right here. The short version is that EJ, one of the pranks that he would apparently play regularly, is using a fake texting app. So it would appear to come from an unknown number, and texting his teammates pretending to be other members of the coaching staff. And one year, rookie Ben Myers, they were in Nashville, and he got on the fake texting app and texted saying that he was assistant coach Ray Bennett, come up to my room at 9:30 and bring me 2 bottles of wine. And Ben texted back, what kind of wine? And he said a red and a white. And so Ben Myers showed up at Ray Bennett's store at 9 at night holding 2 bottles of wine, thinking that they were going to do video work. And the coach just says, not here, someone's messing with you. I guess he got Nazem Kadri one year too to like go down to the pool to break down video, and he just was watching from his window in the hotel as Kadri went to the pool area looking for a coach that wasn't going to be there.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. All right, so I overheard, it must have been whoever was telling you a portion of that Ben Myers story. And I only heard blah, 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 2 bottles of wine. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a funny story. That is hilarious. I also didn't know the Kadri one. That's great.
I think that's so funny. And I like then Alyssa's comment about how it transcends veteran or rookie. He was getting everybody he could.
Right. That's amazing. That's the fake numbers. And I imagine if you're Ben Myers just trying to like stick on the roster, it's like, yeah, whatever you need.
Yeah, whatever you need, red or white. I'll bring every kind that's ever been made. But then the optics of Ben Myers late at night at Ray Bennett's store holding wine is...
Oh my gosh, that is...
it's so funny.
That's so good. That is so good. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to that ceremony tonight. Meghan, anything else? Anything else on this Monday afternoon?
No.
All right. Cool. We'll be right back at it tomorrow, you guys. We'll be back at it tonight. We'll have everything for you guys post-game, locker room, Jared Bednar, my thoughts from the rink as well. We'll be putting out a call for questions, all of that good stuff. You can catch it all right here on Guerilla Sports. She's Meghan Angley. Yep, right there. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. This is Guerilla Sports Off Ice. We will talk to you guys tonight from the Wells Fargo Center, and we'll be right back at it on the pod tomorrow. Thanks so much for everybody. Let's try that again. Thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.